Good morning, everyone. Thank you, as always, for joining us for our latest edition of the Business Support Programme. Obviously, today we are focusing on Jaggaer, the new all-through procurement platform that Sizewell C will be using. If I can have the next slide, please, just so we can touch on the agenda. Obviously, for those who I've not had the pleasure of meeting before, my name is Ashley Shorey-Mills. I'm Supply Chain Engagement Director here at the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce. And obviously, as many of you are aware, I've been working on the Sizewell C project for a number of years now. But today I'll give, as I always like to, a quick brief overview of kind of the project and where we sit. And then we'll hand over to our colleague from Sizewell, Ben Pritchard, who will give an update and talk through an explanation of kind of what Jaggaer is, how to utilise it, and its role moving forward, particularly on the Sizewell C project. We, as always, will have ample space at the end for Q&A. And I've put a little note in the chat box, but please ensure, put any questions you've got regarding today's subject, or if there is broader Sizewell C questions, you know we're always happy to tackle anything. Please put them in the Q&A function, and we will endeavour to answer absolutely everything we can today. Next slide, please. So I'll whiz through our normal slides just to remind you all. So firstly, you'll see on there the screen, the picture of what the Suffolk coastline will look like in a few years' time. Many of you have seen there's been a lot of press recently on the progress made, shall we say, on the off-site infrastructure, so the roundabouts, the road, the rail, and now more importantly, the sea infrastructure as well. But from next year, we will start the main civils, which will then begin the first of the making of the whole, to then fill back in and start building Sizewell C. Huge amounts of opportunity ahead, huge amounts of activity in the coming years. Next slide, please. And it's important, and I think it's probably a good reference point for today, actually, but Sizewell is a replica of what's happening down in Somerset at the moment, down at Hinckley. The whole idea of replication is it's intelligent replication. So learning from how they are building Hinckley to make Sizewell faster, cheaper, better, and to really take learnings into the future of the nuclear and also the construction industry. Sizewell is very much trying to set itself an exemplar across all sectors, not just nuclear. And I think today's a good example of that, because the whole purpose, and Ben will probably talk more on this later, but the whole purpose of bringing Jaggaer in is to make things better for suppliers, to make the whole contract management better than what was experienced at Hinckley, what's been experienced in the early stages of Sizewell. So the replication model is not its replication and that's it. It is intelligent replication. Even our role is the same, learning lessons from Somerset to make things better in Suffolk. Next slide, please. Sizewell has its commitments, as we often outline. There is huge amounts of opportunity ahead across multiple sectors, and the key driver for Sizewell is not that just we get this built, but we do it in the best way possible. Next slide, please. And a key aspect of that is to deliver on sustainability goals. So social value is massively important on Sizewell C. Again, learning the lessons from Hinckley and amplifying those even further. And as many of you are aware, as we always talk, supply chain fits into goal one, ensuring that local is put at the very forefront of procurement decisions where possible and suitable to do so. But of course, you've got those 5 key aims that we want businesses to help deliver on, and obviously we're there to support that. Next slide, please. Within that supply chain is obviously that commitment that has been made to 3 key regions of the UK, East of England, Wales and the North of England. We're obviously here to support that East of England commitment, 4.4 billion to be spent through construction within that 2 billion in Suffolk. And we've already seen some incredibly exciting contract awards to local businesses and some really impressive figures, even in this very early stage of construction. Next slide, please. So who are we and what do we do? Well, many of you are aware we are part of the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce. We are, as the chamber, the 6th largest in the UK, so very much there to guide and direct businesses to understand how to access and work on this project. There's 7 of us dedicated to work and supporting you, and currently amongst the businesses that are with us today, you know, you're some of the 3,000 businesses that we work with, supporting ultimately in multiple sectors to be able to take advantage of the opportunity that Sizewell C brings. Next slide, please. And if go again, if you don't mind. So there's three key aims for us: local, legacy, and environment. So the first point is obviously on the local. We need to ensure that local businesses are working on this project, but also that those local businesses are also themselves using a local supply chain and employing local people. And one of the key things for us is ensuring that we are bringing businesses together through the supply chain, but also as partnerships to be able to foster that collaboration over competition. So important on a project of this size that businesses can work together, because the opportunity is so vast that it's going to take multiple businesses from multiple sectors to be able to deliver this on time and on budget. Next slide, please. Obviously, there has to be a legacy. Lots of these projects come along. People can quite easily often make a few quid, but then we need them to stick around. We need businesses to be sustainable. We want at the end of Sizewell C construction those same businesses to still exist and still be thriving and still employing those people. So a key priority for us in these early days, and will continue until beyond Sizewell C has finished construction, is ensuring that legacy that is fitting of this region. And final slide on this bit. And of course the environment. What we need to ensure is that not only is Sizewell critical to the UK's net zero ambitions, but actually that the supply chain plays its part. And that can be everything from reducing your own environmental impact to all of the best practices that we now see. And a key part, and I know Ben may touch on this a little later, with some of the work that's being done through the capability scoring that will happen as part of Jaggaer and the Supply Chain Sustainability School. It's all about best practice and all about sharing that knowledge to ensure that we're in a better place. Next slide, please. There's some of the things that we'll do. As I always mention, we are there to work for you as local and regional businesses, to help you understand how the project works, where you fit, when these opportunities are going to be available, and what you need to be doing. But ultimately, we are there for you. So most importantly, you reach out, you tell us if you have support that you require, issues you need us to overcome, introductions to be made, etc. The whole team is there to support you and handhold you through that process. Next slide, please. One of the key ways in which we do that is obviously through the supply chain engagement platform, which I know many of you today will be registered on. Local and regional businesses is the central point of information for all that you need to understand around Sizewell C. Things like today's webinar, which obviously is always with our business support program webinars, we record them and then we host them on our website in the support part. And if you've not been on any of our business support program webinars before, please go and have a look, because there's now a suite of information, recorded webinars and slides on there about a multitude of subjects to really help you gear up and be as ready as possible for this opportunity. Next slide actually talks about what we're going to talk about today, so I won't sit on this too much, but obviously the procurement platform, Sizewell C is now utilising Jaggaer, and Ben will explain this in far more detail later. Next slide, please. But it is an important point to make that CompeteFor, that was the historical platform that Sizewell C was using, it is still live. It will, for a short period, continue to be used by the Civil Works Alliance, who are obviously the ones handling the main civils phase on this project. So as the handover takes place, you will still continue to see some opportunities come through on CompeteFor, but as always, and as we always try and say, we will be your safety net for that. If you're registered with us and you're of relevance, we will make sure you're aware of these opportunities, as we have done with, I think, 4 opportunities this week, or 3. It's either 3 or 4 opportunities this week gone live on CompeteFor for the Civil Works Alliance. Next slide, please. And of course, important part of what we do is helping demystify that supply chain landscape, helping you as a business understand where you fit within this, where there are replicated contracts to happen from Hinckley, how we can introduce you to those replicated contractors, but also where there's the opportunity for innovation, new ideas, things that can be brought forward that maybe the project would like to explore, and creating the environments to make that as easy as possible. As I say, very much now we're moving into the main civils phase, where the Civil Works Alliance are taking the priority with regards to procurement. And we're working very closely with them and their main tier 1 partners to understand the next steps of engagement with them. And in turn, very soon, we will start that same work with the MEH Alliance as they begin to mobilise. Next slide, please. And of course, big part of our portal and what Ben will just chat about today is ensuring that the essential standards are clear for businesses to see. One of the biggest challenges for business is, yes, where is the opportunity? What is the opportunity? But also, how do you get ready for that opportunity? And you'll know that in September last year on our portal, we updated with the essential standards questions. It is critical that you as businesses, no matter which portal you're on, that you answer all of the questions, because by giving us and by giving Sizewell that information, we are then able to best direct support to you. And you will find across our team over the next couple of months, we're going to be doing an awful lot of very targeted mailing and contacts with you as local and regional businesses, where you've very kindly given us your information, and we're now going to be coming with solutions for the areas which you can't currently adhere to or complete. It's vitally important that we help businesses get as ready as possible for Sizewell, because also with the raft of projects happening in this region, there's actually a lot of other opportunities that could also, by doing this work, benefit you as well. Next slide, please. And I think so, yeah. So at this point, I will hand over to Ben, who will now talk through Jaggaer. And I know, Ben, I can guarantee what the first slide's going to be. What's the first slide going to be, Ben?
Exactly. Yeah, Beth, next slide, please. The first slide will be the same photo, and a reminder, Ash, that every time I show this photo, you promise me next time you will do the same to introduce yourself, and you never do.
I do keep forgetting.
Yeah.
I will dig out a awful photo of, not that yours is awful, I should say.
I was going to say, how rude.
Of a 4-year-old boy on an Essex council estate. There you go.
So all joking aside, good morning everyone. So I'm Ben Pritchard. I'm a senior commercial manager at Sizewell. I've been here almost 2 years now, sort of focusing on sort of central governance and improvements. I've been in and around the construction industry sort of all my life, and predominantly in the nuclear industry for sort of the 20 odd years of my career. Next slide, please, Beth. So I think one of the important things is to sort of help frame sort of today and sort of what we've been up to, is that this is a sort of a longer improvement journey that we've got mapped out and that we have plans for, that will take us a little bit of time to get to the end, but we certainly have sort of strong ambitions to not stop and continually improve. So we have sort of, you know, where we were with those disparate systems. We are now here where we have this simplified procurement sort of system landscape. But we want to continue sort of improving, looking at how we can use those systems to better engage with the supplier chain, sort of in Suffolk in particular, but also the rest of the UK. We want to be better in understanding sort of the data, the people, the ways of working that we have. So again, that we can improve things, that we can be proportional in our approach, that we can give far better, more consistent signals of what's coming up, and sort of by embedding these new systems, by sort of, you know, learning on the good that happens at Hinkley and other infrastructure projects across the UK, we can sort of develop much better pipeline systems and sort of get to that mature integrated ecosystem that we want to get to. Next slide, please, Beth. So one of the reasons for the change is a number of the sad faces that I would see, and Ash would remind me of sort of the frustrations with how the journey of procurement at Sizewell was, where there was a constant need to register and respond, where you were being asked the same question in CompeteFor, in Ivalua or in HICS, and sort of that sort of disparate systems, that lack of control that we had because they weren't necessarily our systems. It made it really difficult for us to truly ask what we needed and wanted to ask, but also make sort of, you know, the journey as productive as possible, not just for you suppliers, but also internally. You know, internally we were verifying and marking the same thing over and over again. So it was just a frustrating solution for everyone involved. Next slide, please. So our aim is very much sort of happy smiley faces, where we have a much better single registration and response, a single sort of supplier journey, a single location for everything and anything that you need to know about Sizewell, how we procure, what we're procuring, when we're procuring, and why we're procuring. Really sort of making it as easy as possible to engage with the supply chain, make it as easy as possible for you to be able to see what you need, and as Ash sort of alluded to, with things like the essential standards, helping you understand where there might be areas that need strengthening, and then what we can then do with that is through Ash, through NSAN, through the Supply Chain Sustainability School and others, sort of provide some of the tools that we can do to help sort of turn those sort of reds into greens and help you through our pre-qualification process. Next slide, please. So Ash just copied and pasted a little bit of this, I noticed, into one of his slides, but our as is sort of that 3 and that 2B, or where we are now, is sort of moving towards 1. What we have done and what we launched earlier last month was our sourcing solution, so that CompeteFor and Ivalua replacement. What we're currently doing on that timeline below is the HICS side of things. So our onboarding, our verification, our supplier information management, our validation of sort of, your bank details and all that, we're looking at building all that into Jaggaer over the next sort of couple of weeks to launch that in September. And that will really give us this sort of one end-to-end process. We're also looking at launching the contracts module in Jaggaer by September, October, and that'll let us negotiate the contracts within Jaggaer as well. So we are really trying to, again, sort of, one place to go, one place to talk to us, one place to do everything. That'll really help us with, data integrity, all of those type of things, time savings for you and us, and just being able to sort of, better control what we're asking when we're asking it. Next slide, please. So that single sort of end-to-end process simplifies things for you and for us in a number of ways. One of the key things is that profile question library. So once we ask a question and you answer that question once, it's there in the library, and it will auto-populate future prequals. So all you have to do is then verify your answers, update your answers if you want, but if the answer's right, you just confirm and you carry on. What we will continue to look at as we mature and develop how we use the system is to see how different business units, so site delivery, civils, nuclear island, indirect, they all have different requirements. The proportionality of some of these things that we ask will be very different from sort of A to B to C. So as we sort of mature our use of it, we can flex and support simplifying what's being asked and making sure that what's being asked is the right thing for that area. So we're really looking at, doing that as part of the ongoing sort of maturity over the next 12 months. And as that sort of line there says, and I'll sort of show it how we do it in a minute, that essential standards is built into the system. So you do get an initial sort of red, amber, green when you register onto the system. Next slide, please, Beth. This is a video, isn't it? So do you want to click the video and I can see if I remember how I did it. So registration is a really simple process. This is me pretending to be an organisation in Southend called Ben & Sons. We try to keep it simple. So, many of you were frustrated by CompeteFor, where you have to answer about 250 questions to register. We've really tried to sort of, keep it as a minimum, keep what are required. So simple things, addresses, company registrations, VAT numbers, the DUNS numbers, your preferred currency, and then the user details. So really trying to make it as easy as possible by not overly asking for things that we do not need. That's not my real number, at least I don't think it is. Most importantly, the verification question your favourite football team. If Manchester United isn't the answer, we may have issues moving forward. Once you do that, you click save. It will tell you if there are any issues. So the DUNS number has to be 9 characters. It told me, and it will let me fix it. If you don't know your DUNS number, if you go onto Dun & Bradstreet, you can collect it. So this onboarding form is the essential standards. So again, it's questions that you will have seen already if you are registered on ASH's portal, and it's the same process. So simple questions around bribery and corruption, CFSI, health and safety, D&I, financial crime, GDPR, modern slavery. So again, all yes, no, simple questions, but help us sort of and help you just do that initial self-assessment. You also will get the opportunity to select categories. These categories are not important in terms of allowing you to enter a pre-qual or anything like that. All it does is help in terms of you getting the right notifications after. I think that's the end of that video, Beth, if you want to move to the next slide, please. So this is the scorecard that you would get from the essential standards. It gives you an overall score, and it sort of shows you whether you're ready or not ready based on all your answers and gives you that total. So it shows sort of me, issues that I've highlighted going through that process. Next slide, please. So what all that does is allows us, to work not just with ASH, but other organisations like the Supply Chain Sustainability School, which is a free supply development programme that we've now launched. The capability assessments will allow you to benchmark maturity against competencies that we've developed around quality, ESG, BIM and data, various things. The school's open to all organisations, and you can see this link there that will be shared after. But across all of those, so health, safety, people, governance, there is training available to you through the portal. Next slide, please, Beth. So finding opportunities, if you want to play the video. So we have current opportunities, so you don't have to log in to be able to see opportunities. So here are various ones that were launched this week. You've got the ACA rebar yard and warehousing. There's a brief description, gives you an estimated value, and sort of as we do more and more now, you have the EOI document as well, which will give you a bit more detail. So the EOI brief gives you sort of an overview of what the procurement is, what the requirements are, the scope of works, things like that. So some key information that gives you an idea of what it is that Sizewell are looking to buy. With our EOIs, we'll be doing one of two things. So this is a sort of a traditional EOI. So you'll see that we're asking here, please confirm interest in bidding for this procurement. And you log in to do that. We also launched the nurseries one the other week. This one's slightly different, as you'll see. So this goes straight into the full PQQ. So, you know, we can do more different things now because of that joined up sort of nature of our system. We don't necessarily need to have sorry, Beth, the video started again. Can we stop and move on, please? So once you're in, you can respond to our RFQs. So if you want to play this video, please, Beth. So you can play around with the dashboard and change what it looks like. This is what it looks like when you first log in. Where there are PQQs and tenders open to all suppliers, you'll be able to see them all. You'll be able to sort of log in and see them, you know, something that we wouldn't we weren't able to do, be that sort of open and transparent with you. You can express interest so that you can start responding. Similarly, this is a full pre-qual. You are asked to agree to our NDA before you see it. Same document, same process as we had in Ivalua. These PQQs weren't on that list because these are ones that I was invited to directly, sort of closed ones. So you'll see this is the whole question bank. Don't worry, not everything will look like this, but also a lot of these are sort of conditional questions based on answers. So you can see sort of the whole thing there. Once you're in, you say that you intend to respond. You can download and take it away if you want, and then you can upload your answers. But the idea and the recommendation is that, again, we do everything in the system. You'll sort of notice as well that there were some answers already completed. That's because those essential standards went into that question bank. They're there, they're ready, and can be reused. All that we have to do is verify those answers. So you fill in the answers. The questions vary from sort of your typical yes, no's to some sort of short answers. This sort of tells me what's sort of missing before I can submit. I didn't go through all of it, but essentially once you finish everything, you save, exit and respond, and you will be given feedback from Sizewell as soon as possible. So hopefully through sort of the fact that, you know, we can be a little bit more transparent with our pre-quals that are available, that, you know, your previous pre-qual answers are there ready to be reused. All of these things will make it much easier to find opportunities, to submit responses, and everything else involved. Next slide, please, Beth. So that was a fairly whistle-stop tour because it's quite difficult to know what people would want, and generally people just want to ask me lots of questions. But those videos hopefully give you a flavour of the simplicity of the portal, how we're going to use the portal, that sort of initial sort of front page for those opportunities, how you can quickly and easily sort of get into the system, and how you can find sort of those open pre-quals in the system. Obviously, like all procurement systems, you can set up notifications and things like that. And I'm sure sort of Ash and his team will be in and are buzzing in and around the system a few times a day, making sure that they're on top of any new opportunities that are available for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it links to, there's a number of questions. There's some are duplicated, but we'll go through them in order. But yeah, 100%. Obviously, as we mentioned it earlier, we're that safety net. So in theory, you as businesses, when you register on these platforms, you will be automatically informed that there is an opportunity, right? But that's obviously as long as they're entered incorrectly and you've put in your profile correctly, et cetera, et cetera. And we get mistakes happen and sometimes things go wrong. So we'll always try and give you the heads up as well, via socials, via email, and, you know, most of the time via the newsletter as well. So there's loads of different ways, and we continue, even on the new platform, we continue to do a lot of pre-market engagement. So actually before it's even going live, you know, we'll often be speaking to a number of businesses around opportunities that are forthcoming to help give you the heads up as much as possible.
So just Ben, sorry, one thing just on that, I think that's one of the additional benefits that we have now through that sort of opportunities and Jaggaer that we didn't have, where we'll be able to do proper market engagement, to be able to release things that ask for ideas, opinions where we can and where it's relevant. You know, I think you'll start to see more and more as we sort of mature as an organisation, mature our use of the system, you know, a different approach to procurement.
Perfect. And so I think there's some questions asked, you know, with regards to receiving notifications. I think, like I say, I have put a comment on there. So I think it was Paul and John asked if you can let us know which, obviously, platform you're referring to, because generally speaking, you know, it is exactly that. If you put in the correct emails and the correct parameters, certainly from a procurement perspective, you will be alerted. With our work, it's just making sure that you're down as that main contact. It astounds us every time the amount of businesses, we get people move on, but it's important that then there's that handover process, that someone else takes on the responsibility of making sure that you're getting these notifications. So we've got, actually, to be fair, first one's a non-Jaggaer question, Ben, so I'll quickly answer it. So as this is a replica to Hinckley, what will the opportunity to offer alternative products, systems, products that are not to what's being used at Hinckley? So I think that the key with this, and we've had this a lot, is there's certain red lines. The whole premise of Sizewell being able to be done faster, cheaper and better and more effectively and more efficiently is that certain bits are designed in. So there will be the odd product that someone probably has that might be able to save a couple £100,000 and make things a week or so quicker. But actually, if they've got to then redesign it, and that costs many £1 million to redesign and probably 2 years of redesign work, then obviously there are certain things that cannot be touched. But I think, as Ben alluded to, the project wants to hear about innovations. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always easy to implement them. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying. So the most important thing, if you've got a way of doing things that maybe is different from Hinckley, or just different from other infrastructure projects, full stop. Because again, don't forget, most of Sizewell is not nuclear, it is just construction. So if you've got ways of doing things, come through to the chamber, let us know about them, and we will then be able to come out to you and let you know, come out to the project and kind of understand, is there an appetite for this type of thing? Is there something that's possible here? And then hopefully create those relationships. There will be, though, some red lines. Even the best ideas, it doesn't matter if it's got to be redesigned, it's not going to be redesigned. But where possible, we will always try and encourage that. Right, we've got a question here. Oh, go on, Ben.
Yeah, like you say, and those red lines focus predominantly in and around sort of the nuclear island, the nuclear buildings, the reactors, the turbines, these type of things. The things where a design change will take years. So that's the focus of the replication is there. There is no replication on the offsite infrastructure on sort of some of the civils. We have been testing ground freezing as a solution for some of our sort of civil piling requirements and stuff like that, to see if we can sort of dig that big hole that Ash mentioned a little bit quicker earlier. The campus, the accommodations, the college on the coast, a lot of the marine works, everything that we'll be doing in Orwell, none of this is replicated. So a lot of this will be done through open competition. Or if not directly, certainly indirectly. And again, that's where we're really going to try and focus and build on our transparency of who our tier 1 suppliers are and how they further sort of, utilize, because they all have requirements to help us achieve those spend targets, the targets that we have on apprenticeships and the likes. We bake this into our contracts to make sure that if we can't directly do it, our tier 1s do it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. Right, so question there. So is a red on a specific PQQ category a hard block from progressing?
Depends on the category. If it's your sanctions or if you're owned by Vladimir Putin sort of thing, that would be a hard no. With some of the others, it is more that it becomes harder. So quality is sort of the good example. Our GQAS and our requirements do not directly require you to have an ISO certified quality management system. If you don't have a quality management system, though, we will be doing lots of audits. We'll be asking lots of follow-up questions, etc., and it will become harder. So there aren't many that are a hard no, but it makes it very hard for you to turn it into a yes, potentially. So what these are, and I don't think any of them are sort of, hopefully anyway, very difficult to help move on. Things like your modern slavery, that wouldn't be a hard no. But again, and I think a lot of these things aren't just our expectations now, they're expectations sort of across the certainly the infrastructure and public procurement sectors.
Yeah, definitely. And as I'll reiterate the message we've always said to businesses, a lot of the time it's more important your direction of travel than where you actually are. And so, yeah, we've got numerous occasions where businesses are a red, but they are working towards, to use our analogy with our portal data, they're working themselves towards an amber and hopefully in turn a green to be ready for this opportunity. So it is about making sure that if you are a red, you're aware of it, you're doing something about it to try and improve. And again, that's where I come back to. That's where we will support you. Ben, I appreciate you probably can't give an answer, but it'd be good to explain this one in a bit more detail. So can you confirm, when are the previous 3 systems going to be terminated? Otherwise, we go from 3 to 4.
The instructions that have been given to sort of my colleagues in Sizewell is don't use CompeteFor and Ivalua at all moving forward. So if you're on the system, you'll carry on. We're not going to try and sort of annoy everyone by moving you mid-procurement from one to the other, but all new requirements should be going through Jaggaer. Yep. Hicks will look to turn off sort of around September, October time. And then everything would be Jaggaer. Sort of Ash sort of mentioned sort of the alliance currently being on CompeteFor. We're working through that at the moment to try and get them onto Jaggaer by sort of the end of the summer, we hope. And our ambition is that Jaggaer sort of becomes their procurement portal and the MEH's procurement portal as well. So again, sort of re-emphasizing that sort of one place for Sizewell, sort of not your ASI construction lines and the likes that are currently being used, but everything being in sort of one place.
Yeah. And again, we will keep, certainly as local and regional businesses, we'll keep you abreast of where you need to be, when you need to be there, and that support that you require. Don't worry. So one question here. From company, currently we subscribe to a few tools that aggregate tender notices, Finder Tenders, Tenders Direct, Barber, etc. Will Sizewell tenders be advertised via UK Gov Finder Tender?
No, because we are not regulated, so we're not publicly or utility regulated. We are a sort of a private organisation when it comes to procurement, so we do not do that. I'm not sure whether general aggregators would pick up opportunities. That would be something I'd have to.
Some do.
Yeah,
some do, but I think that's just more, they're on the ground keeping an eye on it kind of thing.
Yeah, certainly from a find a tender perspective, etc. No, we won't be doing that.
No, fine. And obviously, like I said, we'll continue to promote them as much as possible. So is a DUNS number mandatory for registration? And what should I do if, as my company, I don't have one?
If you're a UK company, you might not realise it, but you are 99.99% likely to have one. So Dun & Bradstreet pretty much create a DUNS number for every new organisation that gets created. So you can go on to the Dun & Bradstreet website, and they have a Find My DUNS number part in their website, and you can fill it out and it will create a DUNS number for you. It is a mandatory field in the registration at the moment, because it does sort of support us in sort of doing some of the due diligence checks later on. But if there are any issues, just sort of let Ash know, let someone in Sizewell know, or let Jaggaer know, and we can work that out.
Fantastic. I think this question's come up a couple of times, certainly in advance of today, but also on today's thing. So can multiple users be linked to the same company profile? Sometimes different people in different locations need to work on the same tender. And does this affect sort of saving the information? I know we've had a lot of questions about this one.
So you'll have one main contact, but then you should be able to add as many as you like after that. If there are any issues, raise a ticket, ask us, and we'll sort that out. But no, certainly the system is, because we appreciate as well as we have multiple people working on the same project. You will also, because you'll be inputting and answering different questions.
Okay, perfect. And we'll get that sent across, Ben, so we can get that looked at. Because like I say, I know it's been a big question we've been asked a lot in advance of today as well, because it's if it is possible, it's not necessarily easy to understand how it's possible. I think is the important thing there. So, okay. I suppose linked to this, can the user details be changed later?
Yeah.
by our nominated user in Jaggaer?
Yes, again, we're trying our best to make the system as flexible as possible so that you control your own destiny to an extent. So you should be able to change the users, change some of your key information. You'll be able to, even when you're in contract with us, and this becomes sort of integrated with SAP and ERP, you'll be able to sort of request the change to your address, request the change to your bank details, and it triggers a workflow of verification sort of thing. So we're trying to make it so that everything is within your gift to an extent, but where required, it triggers a workflow if it impacts us at all.
Excellent. I mean, I know the answer to this one. So the question's been asked, if we're already registered with CompeteFor, does the information get migrated across? Do we have to do a new registration? I think the simple answer, I know I can answer this. No, your information will not be transferred from CompeteFor. CompeteFor is its own entity. Obviously, don't forget with CompeteFor, you are not just registering for Sizewell, you're registering for everything that's on CompeteFor. Whereas obviously with this Jaggaer platform, this is what we're doing for Sizewell. So if you did register with CompeteFor, no, it will 100%, your information will not be transferred across from CompeteFor. You need to make sure you are a new registration on Jaggaer. And then there's another question about users, that's fine. We've already kind of touched on when the phase out will take place. Let's have a look. So what should suppliers do if their company details have changed since their original registration? I.e. PQQ only needing to be answered once, but actually a supplier may then work towards an ISO or other qualifications.
Yeah, so you can answer the prequal whenever you like, because it's there within the profile. It's sort of the qualification questionnaire that is essentially our prequal. So you can continually update it if you like. So I think the key, it depends to that question is it depends if you're in contract with us or not. Because obviously sort of changes to your ISO certifications, sanctions and stuff like that, if you're in contract, we'll want to work with you to understand sort of the what and the why a little bit quicker than if you're just sort of preparing for the next prequal. But certainly sort of there's an extent of, again, up to you. And again, we feel that this should make it a little bit easier for you to be able to respond to our prequal, because you can sort of prepare yourself for a future prequal whenever you have time, rather than waiting for the prequal and reacting. The system gives you the opportunity to answer the questions whenever you like, and to continually update them.
Perfect. Good question, this one. I don't think it's really something we touched on. I think it's an important one. So will the new platform show who has won specific contracts?
Yes. So on that front page, you've got current and past opportunities. Past opportunities will start to flesh out with winners. So when we complete a contract, we press a button and we update that with who's won. We are looking at how we can bulk upload our previous winners as well, rather than having to do it one by one at the moment. So again, sort of as we mature, this information will get furnished with a lot more data.
Excellent. Multiple people say org register. I think we've now touched that. Will tier one suppliers upload their opportunities onto this portal as well?
Yes. So again, sort of, everyone who was using CompeteFor, we will migrate over to Jaggaer at sort of different stages.
Excellent. How do you add additional users? So I think last time we kind of touched that, but like I said, we'll check into it post this webinar just so that we can make sure that that's as clear and easy as possible, everyone. I think I'll say this one out loud. I think you kind of covered this, but I think it's an important point. So once all questions have been answered, do they get saved for next time, or do we need to complete every time?
No, yeah, they're saved against your profile. So, when the next prequel comes along, you just have to verify that the answers are correct, or update them if you want, but it will auto-populate the answers for you.
Excellent. Got a message that I've registered, but I haven't received my password or activation email. What should I do?
This is Karam again, because he put the wrong email in.
Yeah. Yep. But generally speaking, I think the point on that is with regards to.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
don't worry.
That was a question from the supply chain.
So the obvious thing would be to check your junk mail. Otherwise, if you get in touch with Asher Karim, I can have a look to see what email's registered. I can force the system to send something again.
Perfect. I think this is kind of linked to the previous one anyway. So do contractors who have been awarded work by Sizewell C find their subcontractors through Jaggaer? I think as mentioned, yes, if they have competitive opportunities, they will put them on there as well. Obviously, as many of you are aware, we continue to work with then all of the tier ones to then find their tier twos and so on and so forth, and that will continue. Are they allowed to use subcontractors who are red on the PQQ? Well, I guess that comes to Ben's point earlier. If it's a red, but they're moving in the right direction and it's not a absolutely critical, red line, then that's absolutely fine. But if a contractor was awarded a contract by Sizewell who were very, very good, and then they were going to use a company, I'll coin Ben's phrase earlier, they were going to use it tier two, a company that was owned by Mr. Putin, for example, then obviously that would be a problem. I think the key is always with this, the whole idea of asking these questions is to help you as a business see how you're reflected through that pre-qualification stage, your corporate readiness as a business, your standards that you exude. So the great thing with this, if you're red, don't see it as a bad thing, because what it's going to do is literally tell you what you need to be doing to improve. And you can then just pick up the phone, particularly Karim and Cameron in our team, and just say to them, do us a favour, give us a hand here. How do I address these 5 areas that are currently red to make them better? And we will help you through that process. Be that introduce you to the right people, find you training, find you funding, whatever it is, we will attempt to then help you to get through that process so that then you're in the best place to be able to win work on Sizewell. But as Ben mentioned earlier, these are exactly the same things that the hospitals are going to expect when they start building them. We know the vast majority of the wind and the rest, actually, the whole energy sector expect these same standards. So all of these things, it's getting ready for Sizewell, but it's getting ready for multiple things. Which issues should be raised with Jaggaer support and which should be raised directly with Sizewell C? Is there a bit of a kind of 2 examples have been put on there. So things like password resets and technical platform issues, is that Jaggaer? And anything that's procurement related, we'll presume Sizewell, Ben?
Yeah, pretty much. So system related, Jaggaer, sort of, process procurement related, Sizewell.
Fine. And so particularly with that, as a chamber, we'll always try and help as much as we can. Certainly on the procurement side, obviously we can reach in directly to the project. We'll obviously always be limited a little with Jaggaer. That is their own platform. But as per some of the questions with today, if we can then identify some of those common areas of support that's needed, then, obviously we'll collate that and share that information to try and proactively stop these things being an issue. So we've got a question here. So for a relatively new supplier to Sizewell, they've supplied some systems on the HPC project. The advice may be to focus on the civils and other packages outside of the nuclear island. I think in a simple answer, John, I would say yes. But as mentioned earlier, the replication is the tier ones, right? It is that knowledge base they bring. The tier ones, dependent on obviously the scopes of work they are delivering, may then have to replicate their supply chain. But the question is being asked of all of them is if they do. Obviously, Sizewell has a higher commitment to UK content than Hinkley did. So straight away, those companies maybe that are non-UK based are being challenged to increase their own UK content to help Sizewell hit its target. But also then within the UK, there are key commitments, as I mentioned earlier, in 3 key regions. So therefore, those suppliers that may not be in those 3 regions, or maybe international companies, are then tasked with not only looking at UK content, but to look at content in those 3 areas. So I would suggest if you're a supplier that's done work at Hinkley, fantastic, engage with those contractors that brought you in at Hinkley, because there is every chance certainly on replicated content. So if you're talking tunnels, yes, it's different geology, but it's the same tunnels. So there will be huge replications of the supply chain at the senior level on that one. But then the opportunity in tier 2 and below should be more actively tendered. But on things like nuclear island, conventional island, balance of plant, there will be less opportunity, but that doesn't mean no opportunity. We're already talking to 2 or 3 of the biggest tier 1s across the NI and CI scope to help them identify local and regional businesses from the information you've given us on our portal, so that they can deliver more local content on Sizewell and not purely have to replicate what they've used at Hinckley. So the opportunity will be less for companies like yours, John, and others, but there will still be opportunity there. And over the course of the next couple of years, we're looking to do an awful lot more engagement with those major tier 1s, particularly on the nuclear island and the conventional island phase of the projects. Question here, have we been sent a login or link to Jaggaer yet? Yes, is the short answer. Every business who has registered on our database, so all 3,000, have been sent the links. If you visit our website, there's a link on there. Also look on our socials, we've put it out on socials. But if in doubt, if you've registered for today, when you get the email from our team, obviously is a bit of a post-event summary, which will include the slides, which will include links to the recording, so you can then rewatch the videos, etc. We'll also make sure on there that we put the link to Jaggaer, and I can see Karim's also just put it in the chat as well. So plenty out there, and if in doubt, just come back through to us and we will help. Okay, so I think actually this is, Karim's put this on, but this has come from a supplier, Ben. So yeah, we tried to use the add a user function on our profile, but it wasn't possible. They contacted Jaggaer and said this function that needs to be enabled by Sizewell C. So I think one for us to take away, Ben, and just double check into to make sure that it's as easy as possible for businesses to do it.
Yep, I will raise it right now.
Fantastic. Who or where do we raise the ticket with to add multiple? Right, I think we've just done that one, so that's fine. Josie, leave that with us, and as soon as we get the answer to this, we'll send out. Would it be better to submit company details in the red or wait until ISO accreditations come through and submit in amber and green? I have an opinion, but Ben?
Submit a prequel if you're red.
No, I think it's more about a business saying, are we better to just get on there today, even though we're red, or is it better to wait until we're amber and green and then get on there?
No, I would say get on there now for a few reasons. There might be opportunities where whatever the red isn't a requirement anyway.
Yep.
When you do submit your prequal, sort of one of the sort of, if your initial sort of answer to something is sort of, do you have an ISO? No, you'll get a second question that then is, so what's your plan? So that again, some of these things might be long term, and we work together for the long term and work together to sort of overcome that issues, and it might be something that we can do instead of you anyway, so it doesn't matter. So there's various of if, but, maybes in that statement, but I would certainly say no, don't wait, otherwise you might miss out. And the more that we know, the more that we might be able to look at it and go, well, actually, that's not really a requirement, is it? Nobody can do it. We're being a bit over the top.
Yeah. And that final point was going to be one of the couple of reasons I was going to suggest that it's important, because as we've mentioned on some of our webinars before, the more we understand about the capabilities of you as the local and regional suppliers, as Ben knows, the more we feed this into the project to help the project understand, are we being overzealous? Are we asking too much? Is it reasonable within that package of works, etc., etc.? But also to Max and to other companies, as I say, if you enter it all in, yes, there'll be some reds, but that helps you know you need to do something about it. It helps us know that something needs to be done about it. Because then what, again, we can do is we can spot the gaps, help work with you to identify how you address them. But also, if we spot lots of the same gaps, we can make sure the support is out there. Because most of the time, obviously, the chamber ourselves, we don't actually do the support. We're there to help you find it. Now, sometimes that support isn't as established as we would like it as a chamber, and as you probably need it as a local business. But if we understand that, we can then go into our local authorities, into the Growth Hub, into our funding organisations, even into government to say, hey, look, we need more support here. So the more knowledge we can get, the more information you give us, the better that sets us up for being able to offer that support. So that's vitally important. And also, it's good. I mean, everyone always talks ISOs, and I think that's an important one because I think people know, have I got an ISO? Have I not? But we've also had a number of businesses actually really positively reach out to us. And we did a case study with GMA Warehousing, I think earlier this year on this, who are a company that are not working on the project yet. But by filling out their essential standards questionnaire that we set, that showed them some of the areas they're missing that they weren't even aware were important. So sometimes it's those blind spots. So by filling them out, it will help you understand. That company has now gone and got them. So they're still not working on the project, but they're a better business now because they engaged and they supported through and worked with us. So it's so important. I suggest get on there, even if you're red, doesn't matter. Is there a guide to adding users or changing the main contact? I mean, like I say, is there user guides on there actually, Ben?
So if you click on the little sort of silhouette head in the top right hand corner, there's a help button there, and the built-in help is pretty good. There's a lot of articles in there, a lot of really good useful information in there. So that is an excellent place to go. One of the sort of again, there's sort of, that journey that we're on, we are looking at adding sort of an adopt module, which gives more instructions in the system and how you sort of go around there, even looking at creating a mini-me to annoy you as a little chatbot. So that, I have my own lasting legacy here at Sizewell.
Please tell me it's going to be a version of you as that 4-year-old with the pneumatic drill. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Good question on here. So we've got a company. This one is Selkent. I'm sure there's others on the call as well. They're already significantly integrated with Jaggaer. How do we connect our current Jaggaer account to the Sizewell one?
That would be a Jaggaer question. I think so. For GDPR and various other reasons, I think this sort of sharing of data across systems or across buying organizations within the system is a bit of a no-no.
Okay, fine. But I would suggest, so for Luke, contact Jaggaer, but if you get nowhere, Luke, then reach back out to the team. I think you've been dealing a lot with Cameron, haven't you? But yeah, reach out to the team and we can always try and help unlock that if need be as well. But good question. There's someone else who's asked pretty much the same question, so Julie, so I think hopefully that answers that. So same to you, Julie. Get in touch with Jaggaer. If you struggle to get any answers, then give us a shout, but it could well be that it does have to be done as an independent thing. Will the current EOIs from C4 be transferred to Jaggaer? No is the short answer, because as Ben mentioned earlier, any procurements that start on CompeteFor have started. So what Sizewell's looking to do with Jaggaer is not confuse existing procurements. Existing procurements stay wherever they are, whether that's CompeteFor at EOI, Ivalua for PQQ and ITT, or HICS for all the post-contract stuff. They will stay there. Only new stuff will go onto Jaggaer and then stay on Jaggaer from now on. As mentioned earlier, we've obviously got the slight anomaly with the Civil Works Alliance that will continue to use CompeteFor for expressions of interest for a short period longer, and then they take them off onto their own platforms. As Ben mentioned, hopefully the aim is to be able to get the CWA all onto Jaggaer as well. So no, treat them as two systems, but we will continue to keep you abreast of, should you be expressing interest on this one or this one, we'll make sure it's nice and clear for you. We've kind of answered the one regarding guidance materials and training resources, so that's good. So we've replied to an opportunity on CompeteFor. The deadline is closed. We will receive updates from CompeteFor. Yes, you will. As I say, CompeteFor is still live. It's still operational. It's still there. So if you have, in the most recent time, expressed an interest to something on CompeteFor and you still haven't heard back yet, you will get the automated email still from CompeteFor saying, no, sadly, you've not been took forward, or you will get the email from the next stage, the PQQ platform that is utilised by Sizewell or the CWA to take you on that next step. And again, this is where Jaggaer comes in because now whether it's the expression of interest, the PQQ, the ITT, it's one platform. Whereas obviously the historical was, as Ben mentioned earlier, multiple platforms taking from one to the next and having to fill stuff out. But again, if it started on CompeteFor, it will stay through that process. And if it does for any point, through the procurement move to Jaggaer, it'll be made very clear to you. Is a tier 1 permitted to use supply chain suppliers that are not themselves registered on the platform to deliver the projects within Sizewell? Yes, Tony. We say this every time. It doesn't matter if you're a business, and I always pick on the Midlands, so I feel bad for the Midlands. But if you take the Midlands as an example, there's no commitments from Sizewell within the construction of this project to spend some money in the Midlands. There isn't an equivalent of us in the Midlands supporting businesses. Doesn't mean someone in the Midlands can't win any work on this project. Doesn't mean if you've not registered on CompeteFor or Jaggaer that you can't win work on this project. There are suppliers on site today, local regional firms that we've never spoken to as a chamber. It's not about a single route. A project like this is going to be hundreds and hundreds of businesses, many tens of thousands of people working on this project across the UK. The whole purpose of Jaggaer, of our role, of what we're trying to do here today is to give the most simplified, obvious route in, but there's multiple routes in. So if you're not registered on Jaggaer and a tier 1 approaches you directly because you've previously worked with them on HS2 or a national highways project or whatever else, and they say they want you to work on Sizewell, fantastic, good on you. Especially if you're a local and regional business, I'll be well happy. So, not a problem at all. The reason as well, though, that we say to all businesses, register with Jaggaer, register with us, is because those same tier 1s who maybe want to use you because they work with you at HS2, they're going to need you to be able to evidence the standards that Ben spoke about earlier, that we often talk about around the essential standards. The supply chain all the way through has to have these standards. So again, this all gives you the best start to your Sizewell journey by being able to evidence and understand the questions that are going to be asked of you and actually pre-prepare your answers, which will smooth that onboarding process no end. How do we introduce ourselves to Sizewell C supply chain and capabilities projects we are delivering at HPC? Simple answer to this one. If you're local and regional, so if you're in the east of England, you just speak to the chamber. If you're national, then I think dependent on where you're based, we can kind of direct you from there. So what I would maybe suggest is post this webinar, you'll be obviously sent an email from the team, get in touch with us in the chamber here. We will then be able to best direct you. If we can't support you, we can then try and help who can support you. As much as our remit is obviously the east of England, we on a regular basis, day in, day out, get contacted by national organisations wanting to understand how they get involved in this project. We're not going to be rude. We'll always try and help people as much as we possibly can. Obviously, we have the confines of where we are contracted to support and where obviously we want to support. But yeah, if you've worked on Hinckley, let us know. We can try and direct you in the best way possible. But what I'd also suggest, as mentioned earlier to the gent who asked the question about tunnels, if you're working at Hinckley at tier 2 and tier 3, and it's something that's going to be replicated, i.e. it's nuclear related, it's design related, then there's every chance that same tier 1 you're working for at Hinckley is going to come over to Sizewell. So make sure you're talking to them as well. Where can we view is the scorecard? So I think basically the scorecard that's going to be given, Ben, I know you showed that screenshot, didn't you, of your scorecard for your business. Where can that be viewed?
Yeah, in a supplier sort of profile, when you're logged in, you can look at, so when you're looking at the organization profile, I think it's called, what is it called? Status summary, maybe, I think. No, profile data. It's one of those. Yeah, so I think it's in the profile data. You'll get your onboarding answers. Mumbling because I wasn't prepared. I will go find out exactly where and let you know.
And then we can share that out as well. But yeah, it's in that, and it's links to Brian's question as well. The same thing is once you've answered all those questions, it will sit in there. But we can make sure that the exact location is shared with you. And again, if in doubt, just give us a shout. Give the team here a call and we'll happily help you. Right, there's nothing else to Q&A. I'm just going to check in the chat quickly just to see what's in there, because I know there's always a few questions. There is one there. Will location restrict supply of Sizewell C being national? Look, I think kind of links to what I just said, Cara. The short answer is no. The project has committed to 70% UK spend. Give or take, Hinkley's running at, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, 63, 64%, something like that, UK spend.
70% is the commitment, isn't it?
70% is the commitment on Sizewell. They want to do more UK spend. As much as, obviously, I would love all £38 billion of this project to be spent in Suffolk, right? It's not going to happen. Already many tens of millions and hundreds of millions and even billions have been spent with French companies and companies in Germany and in Canada and in Korea and, you know, all over the world, because there are things that cannot come from the UK and macro level cannot come from Suffolk in the east of England. The reason Sizewell has made the commitments in those three key regions is because they want to start to rebuild in critical parts of the UK the nuclear supply chain. And also, for certain trades, it just makes sense that it comes from Suffolk. You know, when we're talking the catering contracts, you know, we want that local food provision. When we're talking the FM contracts, we want the people and some of the local smaller services from local. Of course we do. But equally, there's going to be plenty that's going to need to be sourced from around the UK. So the short answer is no, there is no restrictions. But what will be expected through some of the procurements is there will be a higher weighting on local supply. There will be questions around what is your base in the east of England, in Suffolk, in East Suffolk. There will also be higher weighting sometimes on social value to ensure that not only are you going to deliver the goods and services that are expected, but you're going to deliver social value in the area around that work is going to, the activity is going to take place, most likely in East Suffolk, obviously not for everywhere. Because again, bear in mind, as mentioned before, this is a new project. Yes, they are replicating the design and the learnings from Hinkley, but unlike Hinkley, a much larger proportion of the work at Sizewell will not take place at Sizewell. And that sounds like a strange thing to say, but many of you, if you've been to Hinkley, will know huge amounts of the work takes place on site and Avonmouth. They are the two big locations on Hinkley. At Sizewell, you've got the location itself, but you've also got facilities being put in at the port locations in the east of England. You've got massive facilities like Allwell Logistics Park in Ipswich. You've also got the facilities at Avonmouth in the southwest, which will be utilised for the vast majority of the marine and tunnelling scope on Sizewell. So actually, with Sizewell C, it will be much more modularised. It will be constructed around the UK and brought to site. So you'll see much more activity in the north of England on Sizewell than probably did happen at Hinkley, but the actual activity will happen in the north of England, and then it will be railed, shipped or rowed down to site, depending on the best way. So the opportunity is for UK businesses, but obviously with key strategic aims of making sure they do some really good stuff in the east of England. Right, any other questions? I'm just seeing if anyone else, any other questions or comments. This is the chance, because there's nothing else there, but just in case anyone does put anything on. So as mentioned, so we will share the slides and the recording. That will come out at some point next week, because we just have to do the recording bits and pieces and get them set up. We obviously host them on our website as well, and as mentioned, check out the support page on the website, because there's lots of information on there about previous webinars as well. We'll make sure links, etc., are shared on that email if you haven't got access to Jaggaer yet. But again, go and use it. If there's questions, the team at Jaggaer are very helpful. We will help you as well. And as Ben said earlier, as a Sizewell team, you know, they've procured this because they can see the benefit that it's going to bring. If there's any other issues, then that's not a problem at all. Let us know, and then we can keep feeding this in, and then we can address them together. As we're in this little bit of a flux between two systems, there will be questions. That's fine. Just ask the team. Whether it's me, whether it's Beth doing our events, Jack doing our marketing, you know, Ian, Hannah, Karim, and Cameron, who do a lot of the more business-facing engagement stuff. Just reach out to the team, and we can soon help you if you've got questions. Don't make assumptions if you're unsure. There is something just got in the chat. Oh, fine, excellent, good. Yeah, I mean, poor Milton Keynes. It's like right on the edge, isn't it, of our area, but like I say, it doesn't stop anyone. And actually, a good example of this, and I always say, and it's a bit more on a local level, there is obviously more of a commitment in Suffolk than the whole of the East of England. So there is 4.4 billion commitment to the East of England, 2 billion of that in Suffolk. So ergo 2.4 billion in the other 5 counties, you know. But the project, it makes much more sense to procure something from Great Yarmouth than it does Haverhill, right? And there's nothing against Haverhill, obviously, but Haverhill's in Suffolk, but is probably 2 hours from site on a good run. Great Yarmouth, with a port location and established rail locations, an established base for engineering and the offshore industry and all these things, you know, is probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour from site. So yes, it's in Norfolk, but it, you know, the project will make the right decisions. So it's not just looking at locality. There's something else going in the chat. What we got? How do we add data certificates to the certificate section in the organisation profile? Ben?
So I think you sort of have to answer a question first and they get saved there. So you can't upload them without linking them to a question in the first place. I'll go away to double check that logic, but I think that's sort of, you know, to store against the questions that you've already answered so that you can upload it when it requires revalidation because you got a new one or what have you. I think that's how the logic works, but I can go double check.
All right, perfect. And question here, not related to a Jaggaer, but as a building product distributor in East Anglia, will it gain any advantage of winning supply contracts for contractors? Look, in theory, Miles, you would say yes, because those contractors working on the project will have made commitments themselves around local suppliers, local people, apprentices and community groups and all the different aspects of sustainability, the ESG goals of this project. They will have made those commitments. Now, it doesn't mean they have to use a local building contractor, building supplies contractor, or supplier, sorry, and distributor. But, you know, low-hanging fruit, a lot of them would want to. That's particularly where our role comes in. So on a regular basis and soon to be much more regular, we're meeting with more and more of those tier 1 contractors that are active on site to help them understand what it is they need to deliver and when, and how we can help them identify those local suppliers. So as long as you're on our database with correct contact details and telling us about what you do, we are putting your details under the nose of all of the tier 1 contractors on a regular basis, to try and encourage them to use those locals. And then the project, so because it is carrot and stick, we need to do all the work we can to give them the incentive to do it. And then also from ourselves and from the project, they will also be committing to some of this as well. Now, what's going to be quite important though in this sort of area is that the project's actually currently out, I think at ITT stage, for what is being coined marketplace, which in simple terms is a single point solution for all of these type of materials, the things that just have to be bought to get a site moving. So you will have seen recently they awarded a single provider for PPE, and that single provider obviously has a supply chain underneath them. So it's not about one company winning a massive contract, it's still multiple companies, but one company running it. They're doing the same with what they're coining marketplace. So everything from specialist PPE to tools to supplies of bits and pieces. So that's currently at ITT. I believe anyway, certainly at the latter stages of procurement. And again, we've worked very, very closely with the companies that are bidding for these pieces of work. And the aim again will be a single point of entry. So all contractors on site will go to one place should they need these things. And that one place will then have the management systems, the warehousing and the logistics capability to be able to supply the tier 1s on site, enabling Sizewell to obviously stick within its commitments in the DCO on vehicle numbers and people numbers and things like this, but also maintain standards. But that tier 1 will then need a supply chain underneath them of, from our perspective, hopefully lots and lots of local suppliers. So again, make sure you're registered with us accurately and appropriately and that we've got your details, because as soon as that contract becomes committed to and we understand who's won it, and we've already begun this work, to be fair, anyway, but there'll be lots of introductions to be made, maybe events to be had, depending on who wins it and their appetite for this. But again, they'll be treated like a tier 1 contractor like anyone else. So huge opportunities at tier 2 and below. Right, Q&A. Let's have a look. Question in the chat. I've done that one. And no, Michelle Moan did not win the PPE contract. I can confirm. It's actually quite nice because it was a joint venture. So between a Hinkley supplier, who was able to bring quite a small SME, to be fair, from Hinkley as well. So not a big beast, but a Hinkley supplier who could bring knowledge and learnings from all the mistakes that are still today being made at Hinkley on PPE, and a Suffolk-based supplier that has the infrastructure to be able to support Sizewell. And then their supply chain underneath is where we supported them in a few introductions to try and ensure that we've got as much local supply into that as possible. But quite a nice story there, because you've then got the replication model from Hinkley with the local model from Sizewell working together. And what, like I say, genuinely two SMEs, joined forces to win, supplying PPE for every single contractor that's ever going to walk on that site. It's incredible when you consider it. And they won it, not on price. They scored highest on their sustainability. And that really sold it because of the reuse, the recycle, and the end of life care of PPE. So again, it just goes to show that cost obviously has to have a massive role to play on Sizewell C, right? You and I, we're all paying part of it because obviously the government stake through taxpayers, we're all paying into Sizewell. So the money has to be looked after. But it's not all about cost. It's about best value, and that's very different from lower cost. Right, there's no other questions. So I think what we'll do is we'll finish the webinar there. We will, like I say, some point early next week, we'll get this all out to you all so that you've got the information. I'll stress it again. Any questions, just reach out to our team. If we can't help you directly, or if it's something we don't have direct control over, that's fine. At least reach out. We can then connect you into the people that can help you best.